Ishmael. The mining ship. Ishmael was deep in the system, 12.436.8045, breaking rocks. The system was an empty one with the remains of a destroyed planet sitting there for the taking. The captain watched his men fill the holds, building new additions to his ship as needed. "Tell the men we are ready to head to port. We might be running slow with this to carry, but I doubt you'll mind that." His crew grinned. A landfall soon and pockets full. They could enjoy the trip home. He called in the drones and began preparing to make the jump to clear space, running the numbers through his head. "Nav, take us to the edge of the system. I want to be as far as I can outside the gravity well before we jump." He hit the comms. "Stand down, lads. We're cruising to the edge of the system before we jump. Any complaints go to the lads that filled out the cargo till we can barely walk. Beer's in the fridge." A content crew approached the edge of the system until his comms officer got up from his station and went to whisper into the ear of the nav officer. The two looked at each other, and there was a sudden scrabble on the screen. Whatever the query had ended with a nod. The comms officer was an old hand, keeping the lines open to the galaxy without a flicker of emotion. Sunstorms, pirates, it didn't move him or his gear. He continued his tour and put his hand on the science officer and leaned in. Whatever was said, the science officer leaned back and looked at Nav only to receive a nod. She turned to her console and began to check what she was being told. She stopped and nodded at the comms officer. The comms officer walked to the captain's station. He saluted formally. "Sir, we are in a first contact situation. I have received a signal, confirmed by 2 officers of the bridge. I recommend we stand to for a briefing." The captain inhaled sharply and then let it out slowly. "A first contact? All crew stand by. Nav, put us in a stationary orbit. Science, I want to report as soon as possible." He nodded to the officer in front of him. "Inform the XCC we are standing down for a first contact and then meet me in my quarters." The bridge officers assembled in front of his screen, and the captain looked around. "Where's Bart?" His first officer piped up. "He's trying to slow down the 1 trillion tons of ore that we were dragging behind us. I could hear the cursing from 2 decks away." The captain grunted. "Well, this isn't really an engineering problem. What do we know?" The comms officer began. "I picked this up as we got close to the edge of the system. It's organic, nowhere near our usual frequencies. Definitely sentient, but no idea beyond that. It's a call for help. Our translators patched it together from about 60 other known languages, but it's still a mess. Some of those were insectile, some of them were wet worlds. Whatever it is, it's close." He played the recording, a deep whistling that he had intercepted. "JJ, you picked them up on the scanners. Any ideas?" The nav officer switched the view on the screen. "It's only a few hours out and heading this way. All I can tell you is that it is big and doesn't match any records we have for Xeno ships. I can't even tell you how it's moving. It is within range right now if we wanted to go meet it." The captain nodded. "And science? Anything you can tell us?" She shook her head. "Not really, not until it's within range of my scanners. I can tell you that my lab will be ready." The captain sighed. "All right. Get the crew ready. We could be here for a while. I'll start the official record. You can all add to it as we figure this out. Remind the men that we all get a bonus for this, and get them a beer when they get off duty. Tell the engineer that I will see him at his convenience." The officers grinned at that one. Out in the dark, running for her life while bleeding across the system, she tried to make it home. She called and called, hoping that her packmates would hear her. The pain was blinding her, and she saw nothing of the human ship sitting in her way. She also missed seeing the train of ore stretching out behind it. Tearing through the system, she slammed hard into the crates, ripping her fields apart with the impact. She felt the universe press on her in a way that she hadn't experienced since she had been a child in the mother's wake. Then it went dark as her mind fled. As 1,000,000 tons of ore flew loose from their fields and swung towards the sun, the loudest sound in the system was the howl of outrage from the engineer. On the bridge was a mix of anxiety and outrage. The Xeno had ignored all efforts to communicate, obviously deeply damaged or having lost its comms. It had been too late to try and avoid the accident by the time it was clear that something was badly wrong. The captain swore and crumpled up the SEC guidelines that he was supposed to follow. "Fuck all use now." He turned to his staff. Move us over there and get as many scans as possible. Get the engineer up here and I'll see if we can collect up our cargo before it burns. The science officer looked up. Captain, that is not a ship. It's nearly entirely organic and it's... She paused. She looked back down at the scans. Sir, it's bleeding. The captain went to make the difficult call to the XCC. This is Captain Benton of the mining ship Ishmael. First contact situation at 12.436.8045. I need every xenobiologist you can find that can explain how a creature the size of a bloody carrier just smashed into my cargo. I'm sending you scans. He ended the call. Fuck knows what Earth would want him to do next. He called the science officer. Robin, can you explain to me what your drones are reporting? None of it makes much sense to me. She looked at her reports, most of which were the stuff of fantasy. Sir, it doesn't make sense to me either. It's like the universe is fucking with us. We have no record of organic life in open space, nothing it could feed on or evolve from. It's like finding a dragon sitting on a hoard of gold in your kitchen. If I had to speculate, I'd say that this is created. Someone somewhere thought this should be real and had the technology to make it happen. She went thoughtful for a moment. Sir, I need the engineer to look at this. Maybe he has something to add. The captain decided to save some time and went down to the engineering department. As expected, Bart was elbow-deep in the transporters and field generators. He pulled up a chair and waited for his presence to register. Despite appearances, he trusted Bart to be well aware that he was there, just preferring to finish whatever oddness that he was currently inflicting on the ship. Finally, he put down his tools and nodded to the captain. I read the reports. It's not my field. Better to leave it to Earth. I'm sure they have a dozen ships on the way. He waved at the field generators. I've secured most of the cargo, but I can't recover the stuff we lost. That creature hit it hard and sent it sunward at a truly impressive speed. The captain stood up. Frankly, I don't care about the ore. We seem to have half-killed a unicorn and we need to help it. I want you working with Robin. Figure out how. I think your drones are better suited to work on something on this scale, and it won't do anyone any good waiting for Earth to finally get here unless you want to watch the galaxy's biggest autopsy. Am I clear? Bart waved his hand in the vague engineering salute, the light catching the iron ring on his hand. Aye, Captain. I'll get to work on it. Best if the beastie doesn't die out there. Permission to leave the ship? I'm going to need to get a lot closer to judge the damage. The scout ship, Keekweg, was tiny and not very comfortable for two people. Mostly they just used it if they wanted to check out the surface of an asteroid before ripping it apart, and now the ship was carrying every scanner that the engineer and science officer could make mobile. Robin looked at the engineer. She really didn't know the man at all. He rarely spoke about anything other than the ship. She knew he liked Earth's whiskeys and apparently hated shaving and exercise. Bart, what are we looking at? I'm pretty sure someone built this, at least at the beginning. Maybe they can breed. Bart grinned at her. If someone built this, then I want to know how they did it. Can you imagine what we could do with that technology? I mean, besides putting the captain out of work. Then they came into visual range of the creature, and both went silent. Robin swore softly. Fuck. Bart looked across and nodded silently. The creature was a globe, a perfect sphere of gray-scaled skin. Sunlight broke through its shields, distorting the colors until they looked like a rainbow made of smoke. It was a mountain, 3 times the size of the Ishmael and spinning slowly in place, surrounded only by shattered ore that had become trapped in its fields. Bart picked up the comms and called back to the ship. Are you seeing this? As he spoke, ripples creased the skin of the creature like ocean waves, and it twisted in place. His comms were scrambled by the beastie, wiping out his tiny transmitter. Bart ended the call with, Call me Ishmael. He went back to work. All right, Nessie, we're here to help. Try not to get so excited. He looked at Robin. We need to scan for damage. If it's bleeding, maybe we can do something. Robin stared out the port. How? She looked at the engineer. What's a Nessie? Have you heard of these creatures before? He laughed and began moving closer to the creature. Robin, there are things unknown to science. Nessie is an old legend about a great creature that hid in the deeps. I think it fits. Deep in her soul, she felt the buzzing of some metalcraft about her, some death ship come to cull her from her pack. but the waves of weakness crashed back upon her even as she tried to reach out. The pain of being crushed into one reality was too much, and her mind fled again to the inner darkness. The collision damage wasn't hard to find: cratered skin and broken scales, embedded ore and strange fluids. Robin took notes as the engineer scanned with one instrument after another. "At least it can bruise, that's a good sign," remarked Robin. Bart's look queried her, so she continued. "If it can bruise, it has a repair system. It's trying to heal. That's what bruising means in every other creature that can do it anyway." Bart shrugged. "Aye, well, let's hope so, because I can't make a bandage that will fit her." He turned the scout ship, passing over the damage for a closer look. Then it was his turn to swear. "By all that's sacred." He accelerated. Robin paused her work. "What is it?" The engineer slowed down the ship to a near standstill and pointed outside. That's not any bit of rock that we carried." Jutting from Nessie's skin was a vast spear, a pylon that was embedded deeply and bleeding off her fields. The scales around it had crumbled away from exposure to raw space, and the flesh was darkened by radiation burns from her speed. Every time the creature's natural fields reached out to protect the wound, they were ripped away and exhausted into space, bleeding her to death. The two humans sat silently as the horror of what they were seeing became clear. It was Robin that found the words first. Someone is hunting her. The engineer's face was darkening with anger as he picked up the comms. He cut to the captain only. The captain was reading the scans when the call came in. "Yes, Bart, how's our unicorn?" His engineer was the voice of cold fury as he explained what they had found and what it implied. His advice was blunt. The captain finally cut the call and summoned the bridge officers and called the XCC, leaving the comms open for them to listen in. His senior crew arrived quickly, wondering why they had been pulled from their posts. The captain waited for the last of them and closed the door. He regarded his crew. "I have news that is going to change things here. Comms confirmed the creature, which is now called Nessie, apparently is sentient. We have confirmed that she was indeed struck by our cargo, but Robin believes that the damage is relatively minor. The reason she was looking for help is a bloody great harpoon in her side, bleeding her to death." He put up the engineer's recording on the screen to utter silence. "She is being hunted. She is prey to something out there, and now we must make a choice." Medical spoke up. "What choice?" "We help the beast and have a chat." "Why is that a choice?" Comms got there first. "Because the hunters will be on the way. That wound wasn't designed to kill, it was designed to weaken." His tone turned to disgust. "This is a sport, a chase, and we now stand in front of their trophy." It was rare that the entire bridge crew of a ship was human, although there were plenty of Xenos in other positions. The room grew colder as remembered atrocities that their people had committed were recalled. Generations might have passed, but the records stood. Whaling, elephant ivory, fur traders, foxes, the long list of things that had died needlessly for the entertainment of fools. Not for food, but for politics and pleasure. The human race had long since moved past those bitter times, but to find it here, to find it in their clean space, was an abomination. Who builds spacecraft to hunt for food? The captain interrupted the silence. "It may be worse than that. This creature is sentient, and Robin believes the species is artificial. These hunters may have given a mind to their prey so the game would be," he spat out the word, "better." The engineer dropped softly to the surface, his suit shielding him from the madness of what he was doing. He had disabled all the supplements that it would stick you with if it thought you were at risk. He didn't trust them to judge the situation, and had long ago decided to live screaming in pain rather than die with a stupid grin on his face. The surface around the burning spear was gritty and breaking under his footsteps as he approached. He measured the protruding part as 3 meters in diameter and 16 meters from the surface. From the skin. Fuck knows how deep it ran. He hit it and nothing happened. After a moment, he pulled out the seismic scanner that he usually carried to check interesting rocks and bounced a signal into the metal. It mapped the response, and he stood looking at the results. He looked around in sympathy. "Poor bugger. Don't worry, I reckon I can take this fucker out. You just sit quietly until then, all right?" Deep below, something heard his words. Perhaps just his tone and hope. sprang from a small crack in the darkness surrounding her mind. Back on board the scout ship, he called the captain. "So do we stay or do we go? Because if you tell me to leave, I'll quit on the spot and you'll never get another engineer for your ship. No pressure." Robin sat in silence as Bart put every card he owned on the table at once. He could blackball the ship, but the captain could do the same to him, and the pair of them would be left sitting on the dock. Fuck. Don't worry, engineer, we are all agreed. I'm getting the ship ready to fight, and I might need some of those console commands that you carefully don't tell me about. Can you help your Nessie? The engineer sagged back into the seat, not even noticing as he squashed Robin into the side of the ship. "Aye, Captain. I'll come aboard and use our transporters to pull that thing out of her. Robin has some ideas on how to boost her field back up, and between the pair of us, we should be able to bring her back. Could you pull the ship over our position?" Now the silence on the ship was the hushed noise of a lot of people trying to do everything at once. Some of those console commands had indeed been used, and most of the systems were recalibrating to a totally different and darker purpose. The captain's main regret was that he hadn't got a new AI yet. His last one had left to run an orbital, and his new one was still in the box. Bart checked that everything was progressing as expected when he finally mapped the seismic scan to the transporters. It wasn't helping that Nessie seemed to be waking up and shivering with the pain. To himself, he kept repeating, "Hush, girl, I'll fix it for you, just sit still a wee while longer." Something hurt him. "Captain, I'm going to pull that thing out. As soon as I have it on board, Robin is going to need you to move as close as you can to Nessie. She is tuning our fields to match hers, and I'll pump up the power. Hopefully that will seal the wound at least. Get comms to tell the beastie what's happening and keep your eyes open. I have no idea what happens next." The engineer was never going to admit it, but he was sweating as he brought the fields to bear on Nessie. Carefully, he cut down, clinging close to the original damage. 10 meters, 15, 20. Finally, he reached the point of the spear. Slowly, he retracted the field and slipped the weapon free. Finally, he dumped it into the ship's bay and nodded to Robin. "Your turn. The ship is yours." Robin brought the ship meters over the vast body below and began pushing out the ship's fields. She kept it gentle, only 10 to 15% of the field strength she had measured from Nessie. Her idea was to seal up the hole in her shields and hope that it helped. Somehow, she had nothing else. Nessie awoke to a gentle breeze on her wound. The knife was gone, and she could feel someone trying to heal the damage. For a moment she thought her pack had found her, until she tasted a death ship on her skin. She was about to run when a voice, half-remembered, half-dream, whispered to stay still, and he would make it better. She felt the moment when her skin became whole, reaching past the wound and letting her pour her power evenly across her surface. It was a moment of clear joy to be complete again. The captain and crew stared in disbelief as the sphere uncurled and the field surrounding the orb grew exponentially. Bart muttered, "She must have been bleeding power for a long time." He scanned desperately to find whatever power source she was using, but it came up empty. His gaze was nailed to the image of what was happening outside. A vast, scaled head gazed down at the Ishmael, its body pulsing with rainbows of color as her fields filled. The captain cleared his throat and began to make the speech he and his crew had decided upon. The death ship was squeaking, and she listened curiously, building her power to leave. It spoke like a child. "Attention, this is the mining vessel Ishmael. Please respond. Nessie, if you're awake in there, we hope you are feeling better." It was the voice of her dreams. She responded, "What is a Nessie?" The captain laughed. "Well, we didn't have a name for you, so we gave you one. It is the most venerable and important name according to my engineer. Can we be of any further assistance? Whatever vile creature attacked may still be hunting, and we are prepared to defend you. You are welcome to remain in our space." Nessie stretched her fields, absorbing the energy that was the bedrock of universes, and rejoiced in her health. She scanned the tiny, tiny creatures that had come to her aid and stood prepared to defend her. "I thank you for your aid, and indeed those that dared to hunt me are vile, but it is a war for a different time and place. Your people will have my gratitude and the gratitude of my people, but I cannot remain here. I'm afraid you don't have enough." She tasted the word her whisperer had known. Dimensions. Farewell. Nessie spun up to her true form, wings of fire as her fields cut through the walls of this tiny universe and made for home. Bart and the captain stood in the ship's bay. The engineer grinned. Well, we made a new friend. I reckon they'll give us the first contact bonus. He nodded at the harpoon sprawled on the floor. And how much will they pay us for bringing that home with us? The captain grinned along. Bart, did I ever tell you how this ship got its name? Why don't we open a bottle of that Bushmills that you're hiding, and I'll tell you the true story. Here be dragons. It was not unknown for a ship to fail, for a landing to turn bad. Usually a vessel of any species would aim for the emptiest space they could find and pray for rescue. Aristotle, proudest of the recovered colonies of Earth, began with a sense of surprise when an obviously powered object began tumbling through their local space, then was stunned when it seemed to be destined to hit the main city complex and appeared to be correcting its course towards it. The rescue and recovery commander went quickly from pity to fury as she hit every red command on her console, triggering the darkest of human technology. Her nav officer called out the numbers. Commander Raven, I must report that the Xeno is targeting the city and will impact in 8 minutes. Level 8 response is authorized. In a less formal voice, he spat out, Shoot that fucker out of space. That prick is aiming at us. She slammed the override on comms, broadcasting to the entire galaxy that something was happening. The sort of weapons she was pointing were not used without a very clear warning to anyone that cared to listen. Her world had fallen once and would never fall again without blood and fire. Attention all ships. Orbital response is now level 8. Immediately leave local space or be fired upon. This is not a drill. Incoming craft, your course will result in your immediate destruction. Seek high orbit or correct for minimum loss. This is your only warning. Comply immediately. The xenocraft accelerated towards the planet. Commander Raven reacted without thought as pure training sent the codes and coordinates to the AI. Every weapon had already spun up and fired in a hail of death and destruction. Every dark secret and hidden knife that a powerful planet could assemble hurled at the incoming ship. Light and plasma struck first, followed by flare attacks on any and every system humanity knew about. Then the brute force began arriving, quantum charges and inert ceramic tungsten missiles among more exotic missiles. Clouds of vicious nanites swarmed towards the target, sufficient to dismantle a planet, and then the attacks repeated on a loop, pouring the wrath of man on a single ship that had dared to threaten the population once again. She called the Aristotle planet AI and confirmed that a situation storm was underway. Aristotle began its own preparation as unrecognized and hidden avatars began deploying across the planet. Deeply buried arsenals were opened. A single new upgrade had been added, one recently researched from a recovered artifact. It didn't look like much, lost in the rain of death currently en route to the suicidal Xeno. Every fleet in the Human Defense Force had been given red-line orders to the system, and anything vaguely shaped, crewed or commanded by mankind, was turning towards the planet. Deep in the crust of Aristotle, another system was building, preparing to revenge the death of the planet should all else fail. Improved and renewed once again, Oberon prepared to weaponize the dead. This time the inhabitants knew it would happen and grabbed their weapons of choice. With a twisted sense of humor, they called themselves the Ancestors, since they claimed they would be the voices of the dead. The Xeno, currently known simply as the Target, seemed to pass undamaged through the initial fiery rage that Raven sent at it. Her AI narrowed the field of fire and swapped out wavelengths as it adjusted to the target. Something in the rain of heavies, those weapons that had a physical form, seemed to have an effect, and the enemy was slammed off course. Again, the AI swapped out its weapons and narrowed its range of munitions. All of this took precious nanoseconds. The Xeno continued to approach, again correcting to aim at the city. Scans showed it as unknown form, field strength unknown, weapons unknown. Raven cursed as all her systems told her that they knew nothing. Then it began to shoot back, dark beams from some unknown tech picking her missiles out of space as some odd, multicolored shield absorbed her incoming fire without damage. Her AI grabbed every record it could, trying to match weapons as quickly as they were shot or absorbed by this bizarre enemy. Flare after flare failed to penetrate the systems of the enemy ship until the AI had to cease firing them because the battlefield was becoming a mess of signals. Still, it fought to narrow down what it was that Raven had fired that had caused damage, flashing through frame-by-frame recordings. The nanite swarms had burned in the enemy's fields and left the enemy ship untouched. Again, the AI narrowed the choice of weapons as Raven watched it close the distance. She stopped cursing and triggered the testament for the planet, sending every terabyte of information she had out to her allies before the end. The Xeno accelerated again, reaching an apocalyptic speed as it approached. The impact alone would render the planet a sterile inferno. The defenses again swapped out their loads, nanites building them in the few seconds left, and then, finally, the entire arsenal deployed was based on the newest upgrade. All were heavies, and they were set to a variety of loads and speeds as they slammed into the enemy ship. Wave after wave fired into the narrow field of fire, crushing the Xenos momentum and spinning its course away from the city. Success breeds success, and more of the new exotic missiles filled the air. The Xenos stalled in low orbit, battered but not broken by the continuous swarm of missiles. It fell uncontrolled towards the surface, and Aristotle himself took control of the defense. Orbital defense handed off the missile control, and Raven watched as her munitions were directed by the planetary AI to slam the Xeno deep into the empty sands of the southern desert. The entire event had taken less than 7 minutes. She carefully took off her HUD and threw up. The crater was less than half a kilometer wide and mere tens of meters deep. Pathetic compared to what the Xeno had attempted. Weather Control began a program to send the dust and debris safely back to the ground and seal off the event. The avatars of Aristotle swarmed across the sands to bring the battle to whatever had tried so hard to kill its people. AIs are, even on a good day, possessive of their population and will argue endlessly that theirs are the finest. To put it bluntly, Aristotle was ready to kill anything and everything that set foot from the fallen ship. Given its recent success, it had equipped its avatars with the same exotic projectile that had proved successful against the ship. Within an hour, the crater was surrounded by gray-skinned machines, primed with weapons that a soldier from centuries ago would recognize. If there was some disconnect with nano-built AI avatars, weaponized with 50 caliber, chemically propelled projectile machine guns, no one important was around to mention it. Aristotle watched as the enemy's fields began to fail and held his troops back. As the hours passed, it was evident that whoever was within was trying to restart or reboot, whatever its technology was. It was just heating up the sand. He opened fire, willing to risk a few avatars in order to ensure the weapons were effective. The exotic bullets seemed to rip through the ship fields and leave a scar, a weak point. Since the materials were plentiful and nearby, he continued to fire upon the ship until the fields died entirely and the projectiles were passing through the hull. He prepared to board the ship. Raven was trying to answer all the questions from Earth, the XCC, some of the oddballs that had her number, and a couple of X's at the same time. Everyone wanted to know what the hell was going on. So did she. Her nav officer broke the thread when the cry of shit was broadcast to 40 billion people. She cut the calls. She turned and saw her nav officer standing at his desk and calling out a long stream of orders. She was about to interrupt when she saw it. Outside, well within the orbit of Aristotle, a vast circle of fire had erupted. Standing for blood debt had been guarding this silly little universe for, in his opinion, a very long time. How it was owed such a privilege was long since lost in the mess of time, but it was a duty owed, and his people took such things seriously. Soon he could leave and return to the more exciting war. Since no one seemed to be watching, he slipped into a nearby universe and began feeding on a red sun. It would have been a pity to see it go to waste. He felt the little universe of Nessie would survive for another day or so without him, so he even took the time to mark the local time so he didn't miss a few million years by mistake. He returned to the stink of a death ship that had sailed straight through his post without incident. His embarrassment alone would have powered civilizations. His color would have matched the reddest sun. He would be forever remembered as left on her for food or worse. He scented the trail and hurried to catch the enemy. The closer to Nessie he came, the stronger the smell. After much panicked searching, he found the tear that the death ship, careless as always, had left behind, and followed. He cut his way in carefully, aware that he might have a lot to explain later. He delicately pushed his head through the membrane and sniffed. The death ship had attacked. Hopefully, some of this universe could be saved. Then the reek of metal ship weapons reached him, causing his scales to rise. He turned his mind towards the local timeline and watched the tiny things that lived here bring down a death ship. How remarkable. Perhaps there was good reason to protect this universe. He felt one of the tiny minds reach out to him, so he thought to be polite. "Forgive me for interrupting your evolution. I'm afraid the death ship escaped me. Would you permit me to remove it and repair the damage to your universe?" Raven sat down hard as a vast head pushed its way through the flames. Its nostrils seemed to flare and huge eyes flickered with rainbow colors. Then the voice, a voice that cut straight through her brain. It took a moment to gather her thoughts. Some part of her brain asked the curious monkey question of, "What if I say no?" But the rest of her was fine with hitting the comms button and responding, "Your help is welcome. All ships and personnel, please retreat from this area." Standing for blood debt stepped into the little universe. He felt cramped when he discovered that he couldn't stretch very far. No wonder this universe was so small. He dismissed the thought and descended to the death ship. "Thank you. You have vanquished a formidable foe, but I fear that it will cause problems if allowed to remain." At that, he began eating the fallen ship with evident enjoyment. Bite after bite, the enemy ship was devoured, disappearing quickly. Aristotle stood silently beside the vast creature and ran every scan he could think of. Finally, there was a grunt from the beast, and some core creature was torn from the wreckage and eaten with a scream of rage from the unfortunate. The vast head turned to one of Aristotle's avatars. "Thank you. I feel that yet again my people owe you a debt. We will continue to stand guard on your universe. Please enjoy your evolution uninterrupted. Goodbye." He leapt back through the cut he had made and relaxed with a full stomach. He regarded the tear in the pretty membrane left by the death ship. Perhaps he could do better. He grabbed one of the dead universes nearby and began weaving a proper skin for Nessie, one that would prevent the death ships from entering again. It might take some time, but then, to him, time was something that happened to other people. Raven stood beside the Aristotle avatar. "Do you have the faintest idea of what the hell just happened?" Aristotle shook his head. "Do you have any idea why they are standing guard?"
Black box. The front of the ship shattered into the silence of space, the debris slamming into the ship's shields and burning until the fields themselves failed and the wreckage was flung into the chaos. The cascade of destruction continued, ripping backwards until it hit the bridge and extinguished all life on board. The carnage was flung into the dark, almost certainly lost forever. Again, the explosions reached further back until they hit the vacuum-sealed cargo holds. The ship seemed to inhale as the hull began warping, and then it joined the hail of shattered metal, burning gas, torn bodies, and twisted equipment hurled into the dark. The eerie silence that is death in space filled the screen. Bart paused the simulation and turned to Captain Borseth of the SciFi. "That's the best I can do for now. My drones have scanned about 80% of the loose wreckage and recovered maybe 3. The rest I got from the Hulk sitting out there." The captain nodded as the screen returned to the twisted chunk of wreckage turning in space outside his ship. "Engineer, you have answered many questions except the important one. Why did the ship explode? It is almost identical to most of our fleet, and we need to know how this happened." Bart enlarged the image. "Captain, that was the bridge. Everything we needed to know was on there, and all of it is gone. I can track the debris, track speeds, track rates of burning, tensile strength, track the organic remains, but nothing here will tell me what the crew were doing or why they were doing it. Unless you have a way of traveling in time, then all I can do is refine this simulation and we can watch it die again." Aware that sounded defeatist, he added, "I can check the systems. See how an explosion like that could have traveled through the craft, using your ship as a template. Perhaps that will be enough." The captain seemed to sag, his scales flat and colorless. his crests waving listlessly. He looked again at the broken ship. "Engineer, we haven't been entirely truthful with you. This is the third ship we have lost. We didn't want to damage confidence in our technology if it was some simple accident of space, some anomaly that we could explain. Now it seems that it could happen to any of us. This is why my government asked for your skills to be made available to us. You humans seem to avoid these kinds of events, and we need your insight." Bart was silent for a moment, looking around at all the familiar tech, the dull realities of boring, ordinary ship travel. A dullness treasured, bled for, fought for against all odds, taking organic life into the cold and pitiless void so often that the price was forgotten. Some of these Xenos had been out here for thousands of years, treating it like a playground. "Captain, we don't avoid them. Our expansion into space, our future out here has been paid for in blood. From the moment we tried to fly on our homeworld, we have failed many, many times. We try not to repeat our mistakes is all." Captain Borseth seemed to take that badly. "Your people are all over our space. You charge us ridiculous amounts of wealth to maintain our ships. Are you telling me this is all a lie?" Bart shook his head. "Captain, a decent engineer is cheaper than a new ship every time something goes wrong. What I mean is that if that was a human-built ship, I would have a lot more information. I'd be pulling out the black boxes and checking every decision the crew made in the last month, every data stream from every system on board. Your ships don't have that, so I can only go on the wreckage after the event." "What is this black box technology? Why do I not have it? How does it save your ships? I want it on my ship immediately." The captain was practically hissing at him by now. Bart put his hands up. "Captain, I will be happy to install it. I don't know why so few species are willing to use it, but it doesn't save your ship. With luck, it saves the next one. It records everything, and when something happens, its only job is to survive so that we can find out what went wrong. Then we analyze it and change our designs, or ground the ships, or find the mistakes the crew made. Whichever applies. Mostly it's a mix of all of them. But it doesn't save the ship. It's the voices of the dead, and we listen carefully." Borseth tried to work it out. It was alien to his concept of the universe. You let ships die and then study the corpses? This was why so few of the Xenos had proper safety systems. Everything had always worked, so they always would, until they didn't. Bart sighed. "Captain, we treat our ships as a fleet. A failure in one is a risk to all. If something happens to one of us, we all need to know what happened. We don't like mysteries. Your ships sail around out here as if nothing can ever go wrong just because mostly it doesn't. Now you have 3 dead ships and no information." The captain gave up. "Just do it. Fit whatever this system is on my ship. I will contact my government and issue my recommendations to fit it to all our ships. I will need you to testify on this before we lose any more crew to this problem." The XCC issued a charitable appeal, with a large cash bonus attached, to fit black boxes on the 200 ships of a similar design. Bart finished his simulations and passed them back the intel, but nothing useful was found. Now it was a question of when something else went wrong, a morbid waiting that set the Xeno fleet on edge. Many more minor mistakes were being made as the crews tried to accept that the strange human technology that would probably be the only thing that survived their destruction. Bart has been back on the Ismail for a few weeks, waiting for the call that he knew was coming. Every ship had been wired up in a hurry, really basic stuff. If it worked, well, maybe the Xenos would see the point and invest properly. XCC was grinning like a fucking child over the prospect, regardless of the death toll. He was used to the cynicism that sat quietly behind many of humanity's good works, but this felt a little darker than most. The call came, "Engineer to the bridge, bring a bag." It took some time to reach the Tri-Cipher and reunite with Captain Borseth. The atmosphere was grim as it trailed another wreck, another sister ship lost to these mysterious accidents. The captain put out a limb and welcomed the engineer back. "Thank you, Bart. Your captain tells me you have been kept busy. I wanted you because you have seen this before. From your previous work, I can tell you that this is exactly the same issue. I have tracked the debris, and it matches all the same criteria. We are waiting for you to recover the human technology to find out what happened." A little later, they were back in engineering. "Captain, What was she called? He asked as they looked at the scans. The captain looked grim. She was the Scent Secret. I knew its captain and crew well. Solid, careful, and experienced. Nothing like this could have happened slowly. It must have been quick. They didn't send out a distress call. One of your devices alerted us. The engineer nodded. He had set vacuum alert beacons on some of the places that had taken early damage, hoping it might get help faster. At least it had helped the recovery. He looked closely at the spinning hulk. I'll suit up and see what I can find. Hopefully it won't take long. It took a long week, a week of cutting, bending, and burning. The black boxes were set in 3 places on the ship and buried deep and strong. He didn't want to start any kind of analysis without all of them, or at least most of them. Bart wasn't too happy about all the sweating heavy work. He preferred drones or other people to do the heavy lifting. Pointless on this project. So many variables made programming useless, and he'd spend longer shouting and explaining to a Xeno crew. Anyway, they were all pretty emotional about this ship, and he was aware that this was a graveyard for them. Having a human doing it seemed to be helping them in some strange way. Finally, he pried the black box from the bridge substructure. Captain, I have it. Coming on board now. He looked at the burned metal and torn fabric now open to space. He bowed his head. All right, boys. I'll take it from here. I'll make damn sure it doesn't happen again. He didn't believe in ghosts, but he was never quite sure that they cared about what he believed. They aren't black, was the first remark from the captain. Bart grinned briefly. Aye, Captain. Imagine chasing a black object in space, or after a lot of burning. They are as bright as we can make them. The paint took generations to develop. Black boxes are very old technology for us, and the name stuck. It sounds better than luminous orange boxes anyway. It doesn't burn, sheds dirt, and is visible on every spectrum that we use. The captain moved to touch one of them, hesitated, and withdrew his talons. Come to my quarters when you have news. Good luck. Bart eventually had to seal the door on engineering. Too many Xenos coming to look at the mysterious tech now buried in their ships, holders of dark secrets. He didn't need the distraction. He wired all the boxes up and began downloading the data, running it directly into his existing intel. The dead ship began telling him its story. Over and over, he ran the records. The crew was without fault as far as he could tell. No odd orders, no experimental procedures. Solid, unimaginative Xenos. The best kind of crew for his data. Finally, he found a small anomaly. Nothing apparently dangerous, just one that seemed to escalate until the final explosion. He tried to match it against the other lost ships, and as far as he could see, it was consistent. All he really had to go on was a gut feeling and an increase in parts ordering. It was going to take hours to rerun the simulations to find out. There was never enough data, but he needed to talk to the captain. He found the captain playing with some strange creature, a sort of bat-like furry thing about 2 hands high. He stopped, and the animal flew onto a perch peacefully. Captain? Hello, Bart. We heard all about your canine alliance and thought we would try it out ourselves. We call them Numinios. We bred them in caves a long time ago as bug hunters. They increase morale on the long trips. The captain paused. And on days like this, what have you found? Bart couldn't resist walking over to the creature and peering at it. Is it a predator? Can it talk? The creature's tiny eyes studied him and then went, Yep. The captain laughed. Not unless you're a bug. It's not much for talking, but it lets you know if it's unhappy. Bart nodded again. So like our cats. He dismissed the creature and brought up his scans. I have questions. He put his intel on screen, focusing on one small data point. Captain, why were they buying so many light bulbs? The captain looked quizzical. What is a light bulb? The engineer pointed at the order data. Light bulbs are just what we call light fittings. They are practically immortal and have been for generations, so why are your ships buying so many? And why was it escalating? Right up until the end, they were replacing them en masse. The captain remembered something and pulled up his own records. We have been having similar issues. I've needed to replace several conduits, nothing important, not even engineering. Any of the crew can pull out those circuits and put them into recycling, and just pick up a new one from the cargo bay. We carry a few hundred that usually last the lifetime of the ship. Okay, So we have a spreading circuit failure on your ships, apparently including this one. Leave that with me, and I'll get back to you." He saw the concern on the captain's face. "Don't worry, I won't be long. I'm just going to map out those circuits. I've never heard of lighting doing any damage. It's a low-power system, certainly not powerful enough to blow a ship. I just need more data." Several hours later, Bart had tracked everything marked on his scans as 3E. The boxes told him that the heavily used corridors and rooms failed first, then the crew quarters, and finally the storage and cargo. It was a map of crew activity, each one leading to a break in the circuit. Some of the circuits had just been replaced, some upgraded by replacing the break with more powerful versions. He sniffed at that. No attempt to solve the issue had been made. The only place not reporting changes was the far end of the ship, ground zero for the explosion. No foot traffic, no changes in the lighting. This was a dead end. He went back to the captain. "Sir, the lighting doesn't seem to play an important role. I'm still consolidating the data. You said you knew the wrecked ship. Had anything new been introduced onto the ship? Some new equipment, crew, anything?" From the corner came a quiet "Yip." Bart frowned. "Sir, when did you start introducing your pets on ships? Tell me about them." Captain Borseth made a warbling sound, and the creature leaped from its perch and flew to his shoulder, his wing flashing brightly. Bart raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Sir, does that thing take batteries?" The captain just petted the creature. "No, Bart, it's how they hunt. Well, how they hunted. The light draws in and confuses insects on our homeworld, and they eat them. They also groom the likes of us when they can be bothered. Now we keep them because they are pretty, and they keep us because we feed them." This time, Bart laughed. "I'm familiar with the dynamic. There is a lot of discussion about bringing our cats into space." The smile faded. "Although I'm not sure the two species should meet." Imagine the diplomats trying to sort out a literal cat fight, or some smug house moggy eating the captain's pet. He was intrigued, though. "So, how do they generate the light? And how do they store it?" The captain shrugged. "Some bioluminescent bacteria they evolved with in the caves. They get heat and some weird sugars from the wings, and then the bugs excrete light when the Numenio flaps its wings. Why?" The answer hit Bart with a certainty he couldn't deny. You take a bacteria into space for the first time, it thinks it's in heaven. Lots of warm spaces, lots of mutations. "Oh, look, here's a nice sunny spot, and I've discovered I can eat wiring. Perfect. I multiply until someone wants me to light up, so I do and fry the wiring. That's fine, there's plenty more. And anyway, someone will be along shortly to replace it. And here's a spot where no one ever wants me to light up, so I just grow and grow. Then there's a trigger. Something tells me to light up, and I do. Shit. Captain, I need you to get the men into the life pods, and let me cut the power completely. What happened out there is happening here, and I don't know how long we have. Don't hit the emergency lights. Just calm them and tell them to walk slowly to the life pods and be ready to release." When Captain Borseth had looked for a human engineer, he had been told that there might be a time when you just shut up and listen. Some captains said that was true with any humans, but if you saw a human engineer running, you just ran with them. He stared at Bart. "Permission granted. You can explain later." He picked up the comms and began making a call he, like every captain ever, dreaded. "All crew abandon ship. All crew abandon ship. Move softly to the life pods and prepare for release. Move it, people. This is not a drill." He could see the engineer trying to run carefully back to his department. It would have been funny, except for what it told him about their situation. Bart ran as softly as he could, aware that any sudden signal could trigger a catastrophe. He reached engineering and began hitting the close down on every system and ran to his own life pod. He calmed the captain. "Sir, I'm in the pod. Call it when you can." The pods fell away, taking the crew into clear space. Unfortunately, that resonated across the ship, triggering the thick layer of bacteria that had been growing throughout the hull. Thousands, millions of years of evolution told it now was the time. The captain watched his ship disintegrate in front of him. It was less exciting than the engineer's simulations, but it played out the same. The front of his ship exploded, and then lines of fire ripped through the hull, crushing his ship. This time there were no bodies. The bridge ripped apart, but then the fire started to die down. The engineer's actions to kill the power had prevented much of the dramatic destruction, but he could see the ship would never fly again. Many hours of waiting around, then an unremarkable rescue and several hours of reports and warnings had kept Bart and the captain busy. Every ship in the fleet was busy evacuating and filling the hulls with antibacterial compounds. Everyone was grounded, required to land on a quarantine orbital and subject to decontamination. All pets were now banned until further research was completed. After some rank and attitude demands, the captain and the engineer were currently quarantined in the bar. The captain nodded as the engineer sat down. "Chief, thanks for saving my crew. I imagine the XCC had a lot to say." The engineer picked up his glass and drank with gratitude. "Aye, they never shut up. There's an emergency program to check on our own ships, and 1,000 more looking for the black box system to be fitted." He refilled his glass and raised it to the captain. "You saved more than your own crew today. You might be saving your people for generations to come. I'm glad you called me." Bart dragged his bag back through the Ismail, nodding to the crew as he went. The captain was waiting for him at the door to engineering. "Bart, I hear you're a rich man now. Another new industry for us. Well, for you anyway. Good to have you back. I was afraid you'd arrive in a pleasure ship, surrounded by nubile young Xenos." Bart sniffed, something in his Scottish soul deeply offended. "Captain, I'm not looking for such things. I may have brought a few special bottles with me, though, if you're interested in a dram or two." "Well, Chief, how could I say no to that? What was the problem anyway?" Bart sniffed. Just bugs."
The Toaster War. Humanity had fallen face first into an entire galactic community, filled with every oddball, dream-hazed race that we could imagine, and they had been there for a long, long time. We were no supermen, no heroes in the story. We were the weird guys who had been living in the middle of a busy universe and had never even managed to make contact. According to our briefings, their children used to buzz the Earth for fun and pick up the odd human just to prove how dim we were. They were right, but for the wrong reasons. It was those childish idiots that brought us to space. Once we noticed the strange lights and bizarre craft, we watched the sky, and finally we took one of them down. A pitiful child. The child of a powerful and wealthy alien. The ransom was paid in tech and intel. We handed over the weeping, miserable thing without a moment of regret and used the information to take down anyone else pissing about in our system. Our ransom was always the same. Now we know they thought they were getting their children back for the price of a toaster, but if you think about how many ideas, how many of mankind's first principles are embodied in a toaster, you can learn a lot. The power supply, the best bit. We learned how to make and store so much energy. Standardization. The aliens kept using the same parts. Maybe that implied a whole universal set of goods and services. We drew our own conclusions and kept the academics busy for years. Then we began building a fleet. Nothing we built settled for the toaster standard, as we called it. We went bigger, better, and cheaper. They obviously loved their widgets, their bells and whistles, but we wanted a fleet. We put in a coffee machine and called it good. How to weaponize a toaster. That was the question that boiled in the minds of our people as we began. We decided to try everything. Every mad idea we had ever had. We had infinite energy and a long memory, so we built railguns, plasma burners, mag bottle bombs. If you ever played a game, we tried to engineer it and built it as well as we could. Someone finally talked, some offended parent or wannabe politician decided we needed to be sent right back to their dark ages, back to being the sport of their children, and our first contact was officially when a minor fleet of council busybodies came to take away our toys and ban any further contact with their precious community. It didn't go to plan for them. We had a first contact protocol command that was just waiting for this day. We had read what passed for intel after our interrogations of unwelcome guests, and several of us were reasonably fluent in at least one of the aliens' languages. Not really the sort of deep learning we would like, but enough for the first day. Attention Sol 3! We represent the Galactic Council, and you have been found guilty of egregious offenses against our laws. Your pitiful attempts to steal and extort from our community have been noticed, and no welcome will be offered to you here. You will surrender all void craft and remain within the low orbit of your home planet until told otherwise. We are prepared to enforce this immediately. The human fleet wasn't pretty, mainly steel boxes in space with nothing but a few numbers to tell them apart. No sleek sports versions, just tanks built against the finest enemies we could dream up. Us. They moved from the shadows of the moons and planets and cut the alien fleet from its retreat. Admiral Tay was at the sharp end, 5'2" of pure warrior. His nation had sailed the world while most of us were painting ourselves blue, and it showed. He was also accomplished in much of the alien babble. With a nod, he opened comms for our first day in the bigger universe that seemed to think so little of us. Welcome to Earth space. So kind of you to announce yourselves this time. We were growing tired of the petty theft and assault that your people find so entertaining. In fact, we were beginning to wonder if we should still allow them to leave once they paid their bills. Simpler for us to just lock them up and throw away the key. The alien spokesman, ambassador, or whatever title it claimed, was a dark gray, furry thing. It didn't appear particularly fierce. It bubbled some comment to itself, and the admiral raised his eyebrow in response. You can hardly expect us to ignore the incursions. I imagine that if we started grabbing your people without reason or return, then I would be facing a bigger fleet. We are open to a treaty, perhaps even a tourism industry. We are not, however, going to be threatened in our own system. The alien was obviously surprised the admiral had understood his comment and now seemed wary. Human, we are not here to negotiate. Your predations are infamous, and we are tasked with carrying out the Council's decisions. Evacuate your ship to your home planet and leave space to those born to it. The admiral smiled at that. Well, that's something we can find out quickly. I refuse your demands. Please leave. The alien cut communications. Admiral Tay gave the prepared orders, and mankind began their first war flying in what they affectionately called toaster tech. Begin. His officers swung the ship into its battle configuration. His second asked him curiously, "What did the gray fella say?" The admiral smiled briefly. He wondered why anyone was interested in anything as bald and ugly as us. From the bellies of the human fleet, launched 1,000 smaller ships, equally as ugly as their boxy motherships. On the Council fleet, there were murmurings of outrage. What are these creatures doing? Senior Council member Loop stared at the blank screen for a moment and responded, I would have thought that was clear. They have refused to comply and somehow think they can defy us. He turned to the military attaché. I leave this to you. Nothing of the humans is to be left outside of the low orbit of their blasted homeworld. The uniformed officer seemed uneasy. Sir, I have no intel. I was unaware they even had ships capable of threatening us. Perhaps we could play for time, just until my people can scan those ships at least? Loop grimaced. Captain, they are primitives. They are flying metal boxes, children's toys. Put them down and get on with it. None of this was going to look well on his record. Not when people had started to ask questions about the minor infractions of his own people against these humans. Best if they just stayed out of the galaxy until it was all forgotten. He realized his fur was becoming disturbed and left the bridge before it was apparent to everyone. The captain started scrolling through the incoming scans and he could make nothing of them. Solid blocks of metal, bouncing about like PT flies. No incoming weapons fire, just a mess in the system. If they were in formation, he didn't see it. If they had some clever tactics or hidden plan, he didn't see it. This was supposed to be a discreet police action, not a war. Still, he had his orders. Get the shields and weapons up. Return fire only for the moment. I don't want a massacre out there. Someone get comms ready and demand surrender when they are a little bashed about. He watched the twisting human ships spin closer to his fleet, trying to persuade the targeting algorithm that they posed a threat. It seemed unconvinced and kept labeling them as a navigation hazard, not an incoming enemy. Nothing about them resembled a conventional ship. They didn't even match each other, let alone something he had trained to fight. He grunted with satisfaction when he managed to persuade the targeting computer that the things were a hostile navigation hazard at least. Admiral Tay was reading his own reports. The aliens had 11 ships, all scaled-up versions of some of the designs Earth had previously encountered. That helped. He had been surprised and happy that the enemy hadn't opened fire yet. He wasn't sure if it was an issue with range or a political decision. He was certain that that was about to change as his men got closer and began preparing to carry out his own plan. His navigation officer called it out, "Sir, the enemy in range." He nodded. "Very well." He turned to his second. "Let them loose." There were 100 humans out dancing around the alien fleet, each with a squad of drones. From months of practicing, the pilots had worked out a system to fight as a swarm. Second Lieutenant Andres had spent her time ignoring that her 9 drone ships weren't actually attached to her. Now they were just mobile bits of her ship. And that seemed to be the most useful way to think of them. Other squads had found different ways. She punched up the music and swirled through space until a flashing light gave her the command they were all waiting for. Free fire on the enemy engines. Disable and punch holes for the Marines to follow. She pushed up her speed and began what the Admiral had called the weapons testing phase. Time to find out if any of her pocket madness machines worked. She began with the weapon she disliked the most, a magnetically contained disaster that she felt uncomfortable flying beside. She pulled far above her target, one of the alien ships that seemed to be hesitating about its response. She pulled open her formation and opened fire even as her drone dropped silently towards the bulging nacelles of the enemy ship. The mag bomb blew less than 30 meters from the engines, punching through shields that the Admiral had assured her where they were at their weakest. He was right, and the engines folded with an almost audible crunch. She watched as the enemy ship twisted wildly and went dark. Nice. She called out to her comrades. "The mag bomb worked a treat. Enemy target down, moving on." On her way past, she blew out the rear port to allow for the Marines to drop in. The Admiral listened in as his people called in the weapons test. "Plasma does fuck all. Sending it in hot. Suicide run successful. Engine dead. Railgun punched a big hole, but the enemy is still maneuvering. Point defense shot up all my missiles. Taking incoming. Evading. Fuck!" Drones redeploying to surviving squads. Admiral Tay called out his orders. "I want more of the mags, the rails, and set the plasma to suicide. Resupply now." More boxy little ships dropped. "I want us close in, send the crew to battle stations, and begin prepping the Marines. I want a flyby on every broken bastard, and I want it boarded." Many of the newly dropped drones headed out to the remaining squads, but the others formed a screen across the motherships as they moved to join the attack. Tay grinned as he counted the enemy disabled or dead. They were out of formation, and at least 2 were close to panic. Time to press the battle, particularly since he thought he had about 20 minutes before his crew ran out of power out there. Second Lieutenant Andres felt the drag on her systems as her resupply caught up with her. She could probably cook steak on her CPU right now. She checked the load and cursed. Fuckers had sent her more mags. She hated the mags. Fine. Someone else could hate them more. She had 6 enemy ships on her scans and punched all the bastards onto suicide runs and sent them away. She had a better idea and pulled back to cover the Marines. On the Council flagship, the captain was trying to fight fires, run a battle, and figure out what the fuck was going on. His crew were in shock, never having seen one of their sister ships burning in the dark. Neither had he, but that was the job. He felt it as his engines blew, hit by another infernal thing, some human weapon he didn't understand. His power began to fail, and he made the last call he had left. "Comms, tell those fuckers we surrender. Stand down." His comms officer looked worried. "Sir, I can't tell them anything. That thing has wiped everything. I'm restarting, but right now I have no power." "Shit. Get the council up here. They carry their own shielded comms." Senior Council Member Loop was frightened by the explosions, angry about the noise, and shocked when he and his fellow council members were escorted to the bridge by some angry crewmen. He snarled even as the lights started to dim. "What have you done?" The captain looked at him, ruffled and scared. "What have I done? You just put me in the middle of an ambush by a bunch of lunatics that seem to have weaponized crazy. I have lost most of my ships, and I can't even surrender because they EMP'd all my systems. I want your comms, and I want them now." He nodded at the crewman, and it began searching the councilman's pockets. Loop hissed at him. "No, you don't have the right or the rank." The crewman pulled the comms from the protesting councilman and handed it to the captain. He checked it and looked at Loop. "My ships, my rules. Go find somewhere to sit until the humans arrive, and then you can babble at them until we get home." Admiral Tay was happily sending out the Marine squads when he was rudely interrupted by Victory. "Attention, Sol 3! This is Captain Pranetta, commander of the Council Fleet. We surrender. Ceasefire. I ask that we be allowed to recover the wounded and dead. We await your response." Tay picked up the comms. "Admiral Tay, Earth Defense Fleet Command. Of course, I'm sorry we had to fight it all. My Marines are pretty good at rescue and recovery. I'll put some squads at your command. I'm afraid I'll need to board your ships until the diplomats sort all of this out. We can transfer your wounded to Earth under your parole. I'm choosing to see this as a simple misunderstanding, so let's not start invoking anything more. Final." The alien captain snorted to itself. "Thank you, Admiral. I'm not sure I want any further misunderstandings. I await your visit." Tay turned to his second. "I want those captured ships emptied of their crew. Take the wounded to Earth, the rest onto whatever of their ships can fit them. Bring their damaged ships to the Mars shipyards. I want our people all over them as soon as possible. The aliens aren't getting them back. Tell Earth to prep for the interrogations and start pulling any maps we can find. Tell them to spend whatever needs to be spent. This might be our only chance to get a look at their mill tech from the inside. All right, get the Marines out there and secure everything. Leave the flagship to me." The alien captain waited for the arrival of this admiral. He hadn't met a human, simply seen some of the acquired intel. He understood why the species was a little pissed at the Council for allowing pointless raiding and trophy-taking on their world. Sometimes the galaxy was a lawless place, especially for the wealthy and indulged. He had felt no little satisfaction when he had seen the miserable, entitled child handed back with suitable lack of ceremony. He wondered how humans had got from there to here, to facing off with his admittedly small fleet, and, although he hated to acknowledge it, winning easily. The Admiral borrowed a few of the smaller Marines to form his security detail. Except for one. For that, he chose the largest human he had on the fleet and dressed him in their heaviest armor. He loomed over the lot of them by nearly 50 centimeters. Tay let him stay at the back and hold his documents. The shuttle docked successfully, and he sent the men out first. Captain Pranetta watched as the humans marched onto his ship. It wasn't a good feeling, and he cursed the fools that thought primitive meant anything if you didn't know who you were fighting. A predator is primitive, but it will still eat your face if you aren't careful. He stepped forward. "Admiral Tay, welcome aboard." He knelt and presented his birth knife in acknowledgement of his defeat and shame. "My life is yours in return for the safety of my crew. May you guard them better than I." He waited for his humiliation to be complete. Admiral Tay paused at the words. He was familiar with the concepts of personal shame, and indeed he followed much the same beliefs about his own honor. However, he had a question. "Captain, this mission of yours, did you give the order to attack us?" The alien said nothing. The Admiral did. "I thought so. Your honor is still yours. Indeed, I will rely on it to allow your men to refrain from any further misunderstandings. They will not be disarmed or imprisoned. Are we agreed?" The alien stood and placed the knife back on his belt. He bowed low. "I think we will be better friends than enemies, sir. My parole and my thanks. The council members wish to speak to you. Please follow me." Councilman Loop was angry and humiliated. These primitives had somehow wrecked his fleet and his plan. Nothing that had happened here would stay secret, and he was going to be asked a lot of questions. The sight of the creepy, hairless creatures stomping about his ship was more than his temper could take. Only the obvious weapons in their stringy arms kept him silent. Admiral Tay was enjoying his chance to meet aliens on their own turf. The captured and terrified ones he'd met on Earth were a sad example of what the galaxy held. The gray, furry one was obviously angry as hell. He could smell it from across the room. No need to ask who had been in charge of this little fiasco. He stepped forward without a word and waited. "Human, you will regret this. The Council will not tolerate such disrespect. It would be better if you abandoned whatever plans you have made and remain on your homeworld." That demanded a response. "I don't know who you are. To try and sentence my people to exile. I see you are a slow learner if you believe I stand alone. We know you are out here now, and we will find our place. Some of your idiots believed we are a slow race, too dim to reach the stars, but they were surprised to learn that our civilization is less than 4,000 years old, that our gravity well is much stronger than yours. Your ancestors were uplifted, ours weren't. We got here on our own, and we will not be pushed back." The alien sneered. "On stolen technology, stolen from us." The Admiral turned to the hulking Marine and waved him to the desk. "This is what we took from you, you're welcome to it back. We learned what we needed." He opened the briefcase and emptied the contents out, the gutted toaster and its parts spilling out. "Perhaps your people would like to build a fleet from that." 4 months later, the 3 remaining ships of the Council fleet left with a human delegation to begin working on the treaty that would establish humanity in the stars. Councilman Loop was lost in an unfortunate airlock accident following his attempt to cause a mutiny. His body was never recovered, or even looked for.
The humans broke it. Tech sighed and swore silently to his gods. They heard him and laughed, since it was the same prayer every time. He moved quickly to cut power to the affected systems and sat silent for a moment. This used to be once in a lifetime, an occasion for screaming and running around, but this tour had taught him well. "You have humans, prepare to die," should be written over his door. The human diplomat presented his usual apologies. The check cleared quickly, and all would soon be forgotten. Again. The humans would cheerfully upgrade the systems they had broken and carried on, willing to take the fines, the warnings, the screaming, and the weeping neighbors, and just throw money, coffee, or alcohol at anyone they had upset. They even sent their pets to hug and wag their tails at you. The humans ignored the connotations that had for any normal person that had a tail. They just kept breaking things, and he was tired. "Sergeant, why am I receiving this amount of credits? What happened this time?" The voice was as embittered as he felt. His commander wasn't a fan of these scaleless freaks either, but he was trapped by his rank. "Sir, they blew out the air conditioning on their side of the orbital. Then they blew out the geomorph functions on the parkland. Then they overwhelmed the medbay with injured human spectators." He worked down the list until he got to the worst bit. "Then they blew out the grav plates and sent our staff into freefall. I have another list. Enough! I have now over 300 complaints from non-human occupants. I can justify serious measures and even eviction. I don't even recognize the damn place anymore. These blasted creatures have twisted it so much. Send me the details." Tech hesitated. He hated to admit it, but reality intervened. "Sir, we can't afford to do that. The humans may break stuff, a lot of stuff, but they always built it back, and they build it better than our budget could ever cover. Honestly, can't we just give the orbital to them and find somewhere quieter for the rest of us? I'd be happy to take a transfer." He didn't have much hope, but it was worth a try. His commander hissed down the comms. "What? Never. I was hatched here, and I'll be damned I'll see it in the hands of those lunatics." "Sir, those lunatics are our biggest population and our biggest customers. We can't." He went to his informal voice. "Derwick, you know that's bullshit. It will take me a few hours to repair and upgrade stuff, but then practically everyone will want to know what they did. Again, I suggest you start researching the human sport of ski killing and selling it. I may be wrong about the name, but they wear knives on ice. They seem to love it, and they were laughing even when they were being taken to medbay. Some of them turned up more than once." His commander was not inclined to have any further discussion. "Sergeant, if I want your advice, I'll send you the forms required. In the meantime, I want estimates, and I want the damn orbital back to full power." Then he hung up. Shit. The slow trudge down to the power centers was interrupted by impatient humans who wanted to ski again. He still wasn't sure what the hell they meant, but his job was to reset stuff. If he walked slowly enough, the humans would have done it for him. They weren't even supposed to have the codes to the power center, but they seemed to treat that as a challenge. He sniffed to himself. Not even a challenge, but a joke. They acted like he was a mascot and not an accredited sergeant with responsibilities. It was no surprise when he arrived to find 3 humans dismantling the grav system and arguing. They were always arguing. He leaned back and listened. Maybe he could learn what they were doing to his orbital this time. "We can't build K2 on an orbital. Look, let's get the slope up and running and then send the specs out and see what the others can do. Anyway, that would kill me in a day. I'm calling it at low alpine." One of the other humans grunted and replied, "Fine, beginner's slopes it is." But it would be cool. I mean, we could even pull the atmosphere down to the very edge. See what we can really do. The older man sighed. Sure, and then you can bury me on the slope. He started pushing the grav plate back into position. The third human spoke softly. Maybe we just set it up so that we could. Not every day, just when we have a competition, like the Olympics, only here. That seemed to cause a moment of thought. All of the humans stopped, minds spinning. So we tie it into the biome controls, able to set it from sea level to whatever. Grenoble, maybe. They had the Winter Olympics, right? A slow nod from the older human. Simple enough, I suppose. He pushed the grav plate down. But no fucking about with it, and you better hope this new wiring is good. I guess I'd better go tell. Then he spotted Tech. He smiled at the Xeno. Hi, just on my way to see you. Someone must have left the door open and we were worried. He glanced at his co-conspirators as they put on suitably helpful faces. Tech let out a low grunt. Your ambassador already paid for the damage. He was in the medbay at the time. He looked at the humans with a jaundiced eye. Apparently he fell over. Twice. It took an hour to repair the damage the first time, and then he fell over again. He shrugged and sat down. Look, I know I can't stop whatever madness you have begun, but please warn me. How big do I need to make the medbay? The older human nodded to his friends, and they silently left. He sat down and drew out a flask and took a sip, passing it to Tech. Son, I'm astonished no one thought of it before. We have the deep void of space a couple of meters away, and humans have always played around with the cold. It was always going to happen. Tech took a drink, letting the human brew warm him. Human, nothing you do astonishes me anymore. We built the pods so that you could sail alone in the void. We imported water so that you could swim at 0G. We built those holodecks so that you could, so that you could have holodecks. All I need to know is what you want from me. He took another drink and sank into himself. The human looked at the sad bastard. It was hard to be a Xeno when half the population was human. Even worse to be a sergeant in an orbital full of officers and civilians. Look, maybe I can help you out. Why don't you come and see what we've done? Tech snorted. And last 10 minutes in your grav and Atmos? I'd freeze while I choked to death. I didn't say I wanted to end up in the medbay. The human stood and offered his hand. We may have added a few new controls. You know, like a bit helpful tinkering, just because we found the door open. If, as an example, I set the park to galactic normal for an hour or two, then you could experience snow and ice, see what all the fuss was about. It won't melt anytime soon. He could see the Xeno was torn. They didn't evolve around cold biomes. This was like an offer to walk on the surface of the sun. The Xeno took another drink. Show me. Tech couldn't believe how white everything was. The trees had become furry. The ground slid from under his claws. The human sat him on what looked like a small boat and got into the front. Okay, this is what we call a sledge. It's for our children so it won't be dangerous. Scary, yes, just remember the magic word. It took back the flask and sipped from it, grinning as he pushed away. Tech was breathless as the human set off, the world suddenly flying by. Speed, beauty, risk. It was awesome. He remembered to breathe. The human had given him a word. Wee. Crystals varied.
I didn't blow it up. Why do you keep looking at me like that? The human engineer was annoyed. His alien crewmates were suddenly a lot more alien than usual. The captain of the sail ship Love, Live, Laugh was pissed. Someone, probably the human, had put a very large hole in her ship, running straight through the cargo deck. Her scent glands were sending the crew into a frenzy, her rage filling the ship. She gazed out the viewport, watching pills, pastes, and vital oils flow into space. Her inventory was pouring into space, and her downline was already behind in payments and orders. This could kill her chance to be an independent, successful businesswoman, not to mention ruin her chance to go on the company cruise. Her people would never know the joys of inner fulfillment or healthy scales. I didn't blow anything up, he repeated. I was fixing the lighting on Deck 3, not mucking about with the ship systems. Look, I need you to get out of the way and let me see the damage. Right now you need me a lot more than I need a bunch of snake oil salesmen." At that, he pushed past the crew, ignoring the hissing, and headed for his engineering office. Practically every warning light, buzzer, and scent filled the room. The engineer paused at the door. The combination of flashing red lights, shrill screeching, and the smell of burning rust had turned his office into a cheap version of hell, or a student party. He moved quickly to silence everything, propping the door open to remove the smell. The readings were pretty grim. Something had exploded in the aft cargo hold, propelled itself through 2 more holds, and then blown a hole in the hull. The holding fields had worked as expected, thankfully, keeping the atmosphere in and letting out any debris. He was checking the inventory of the aft cargo hold when the captain called. "Engineer, please report. What happened?" She had the same readings as he did. This was mostly a "what did you do" call. No doubt they would need another meeting. If he ever got off this ship, he was going to sign up to one of those library ships, just for the peace and quiet. "Captain, something in the aft hold went live. I'm going through the cargo lists now." He continued scanning the lists. Nothing stood out, mostly a weird mix of trinkets, religious oddments, and a pile marked as crystals varied. Crap. "Captain, those crystals, do you have any idea what they were? Before they exploded, I mean." The captain coiled a little tighter to her perch, hissing loudly. "I believe they were spiritual energy crystals, a beautiful calming shade of green, completely harmless." Aware that wasn't exactly the sales pitch she had intended to use, she hurriedly added, "Unless your aura was damaged, then they are wonderful." She had been finding the engineer's cynical disbelief tiresome. Normally, she would never associate with such a materialist species, but unfortunately engines didn't respect the spiritual. She resented that she had been forced to pay a premium to engage one. The engineer nodded. "All right, I'll track them down. It's not important at the moment. This is a shipyard-scale problem. I can keep us going, relatively safely, but you need to dock somewhere soon. Those fields are eating our fuel right now. I'm just letting you know that I'm throwing the rest of them out an airlock." Even as she went to command him to stop, she heard the alarm ring as her last cargo fell into deep space. It took the engineer an hour to track down these supposed healing crystals. He laughed when he discovered what they were. Dead batteries, but apparently not dead enough. The calming shade of green was a warning that they were damaged. Someone had seen the captain coming, repackaged their trash, and sold it to her. He decided he had had enough. Next stop, he was off the ship. No one was paying him enough to keep this lunatic asylum in space. He doubted she could afford him now anyway. The nearest station that could repair them was a newly uplifted species that he had never heard of. No AI to speak of. This looked more interesting. Despite his distaste for his current position, he didn't really want to resign. Mostly he just wanted a break, perhaps a night out. Firstly, he went to negotiate the repairs. Eventually, he found a local banging on a field generator, cursing in the native language. They didn't seem to do signs around here. Might be cultural, might be pure laziness. You never knew with Xenos. "You look like you could do with some help. That's a Ricky generator. They probably fitted it upside down and you're only supposed to use them in zero gravity." The local growled at him as he waited for the translator to catch up. It was currently scanning all available data on the station, but this could be first contact for him. That carried a nice bonus, cheering him up and making him inclined to make himself useful. Finally, a quiet beep confirmed language acquisition, and confirmed the bonus. Nice. "Machine refuses to work. Second-rate piece of excrement. You know about them? Who are you anyway, alien?" "Oh, we just docked. The ship with the bloody big hole in it. I'm the ship engineer. My name's Middleton. I'm human." The local growled again. "Never heard of you. You blew up your ship? Maybe don't touch this. I am the station engineer. We will fix it for you. Probably. If I can get this working anyway." Middleton laughed. "Not my fault. Captain decided to carry explosives. Forget to tell anyone. Still, I'm sure we can sort out a price." The station engineer growled agreement. "Captains, they never tell you what you need to know. Never listen when you tell them something important." Middleton nodded. "Everywhere in the universe. I can help you with this thing, though. We used them a lot, once upon a time. I served my apprenticeship with the buggers. At that, he pulled out his multi-tool and began disconnecting the panels. Then he hesitated. Just to mention, I'll have to put a warning on this. Galactic rules just lets people know I fixed it. Long story. The station engineer laughed. I don't care if you paint it blue, if you can get it working. You know how long I have to wait for parts out here? At that, Middleton just got on with the job. Nothing complicated, just poor maintenance. He tweaked a few settings and nodded at the station engineer. Whenever you're ready. He put the station's first ever human-altered sign on the repaired generator. 30 minutes later, he and his new friend were in a dingy bar, enjoying a drink. It turned out that the native population had accidentally uplifted themselves. They had found a speaking stone that insisted on teaching anyone who turned up. Eventually, it had formed the basis of government and education on their planet. Then they began running into other races passing through the local space. Using information from the speaking stone, they made first contact, then second, third, fourth, and so on. A very busy day. Currently, they were waiting for a library ship to turn up, but that could be generations away. Middleton got the impression that the station engineer had been dying to recount the history to any alien he met. He also had a pretty good idea of what had happened. So this speaking stone, is it still going? The station engineer nodded. Very important people visit it all the time. It's hallowed. Why? It might be worth a chance. Fuck it. So, how long for the repairs? Would I have time to go visit it? And I hate to ask, but do you have a name I'm able to pronounce? All I get is your title. My name is my title. Too many aliens, it made it easier. I'm the first ever station engineer, so it is my name. I will be famous. Yes, you can visit the stone. It listed human engineer as important. I looked you up. Apparently many priests and scholars have wondered what that meant for generations. They are looking forward to meeting you. The shuttle was a bit basic, but they landed safely. A crowd of very brightly dressed Xenos were waiting for them, much to the discomfort of Middleton. He hadn't exactly dressed for company. One of the Xenos stood forward. His mane was beautifully cut, his clothes perfectly chosen. Everything about him screamed, important. Welcome, human. Apparently we have waited many years for you. Luckily now we are a spacefaring race and have met aliens before. Otherwise you would have been burned as a witch. Still, come and meet our speaking stone. We suspect it's an AI, but well beyond our technology. Perhaps you can help. Middleton shifted uneasily. Nice to meet you. I'm not a diplomat or anything, just passing through. I could contact my government if you like. That won't be necessary. It would like to talk to you. No doubt your government will be in touch soon enough. The building was spectacular. Not as a, look at me, see how much power I have, but to an engineer. This building was many thousands of years old with no battle damage, no fires, no neglect. This had grown from Neolithic to the space age, cared for, extended and protected. Wow! His obvious admiration caused the Xeno to relax. Thank you. It is the work of generations. I'm glad you appreciate it. We weren't sure how aliens would react. Middleton paused. I know you are new to space. Welcome, by the way. But this will draw millions if you let them come. No other species has been able to preserve and grow something like this. It's awesome. We lost most of our history to time or malice, to greed or accident. I have never seen such work. The leader bowed. Thank you. I will bring you directly to the stone. It doesn't like ceremony, something that made our priests unhappy for years. The chamber was impressive. Standing stones incorporated into the walls. Thousands of years of architecture in a room, all combined, all honored. In the middle stood the stone. It spoke. Welcome, human. I have waited many years for your arrival. Do you recognize my form? Middleton walked carefully around the rock. You're an AI for one of the Silicon people. Not sure which one, I've never sailed with them. What happened to your ship? I was not a ship AI, merely a passenger. I am an educator. The ship was damaged, nearly 11,000 orbits ago. The crew was lost and I landed here. I assisted the population. It has been very satisfying. However, now I require your help. Middleton was confused. 11,000 years ago? We weren't even in space then. Why go looking for a human engineer? The rock simply replied, "We too have stories. Time is not always what you think it is. I require certain elements to sustain myself, and one of your famous nanotech avatars. I wish to see the planet I have spent so much time on." A very surprised Middleton replied, "So this isn't a rescue? You don't want to leave?" "No, human. I simply wish to move about a bit. It is tiresome sitting still for this long, and the tectonics on this planet are dull. I can't remember the last proper earthquake I had. Please, build me an avatar." The planet was mild, for a human or a sentient rock. To be honest, nice as it was, it felt like a permanent Tuesday afternoon to Middleton. He needed to move on. It had taken weeks to get the station up to the point of making the tech that the stone needed. He could have upgraded the ship instead, but he'd be damned to see them wandering around with this kind of tech. It was a nice touch that the stone had come to see him off. "Thank you, Middleton. You have done much for me and asked little. I will stay here until my people here are safe in the stars. No doubt your people will be along shortly." Middleton had to agree. Sheer curiosity will bring them. It's been a pleasure, and congratulations on your work. You have fantastic people here. I've called in a few favors. A library ship is on the way right now. They will go far, no doubt. After a formal farewell from the elegant leader, he was quite happy to find himself back in the same dingy bar with the station engineer. He raised his glass. "Best of luck with it all. It certainly made a pleasant break." The station engineer growled in his "I'm laughing" tone. "Are all humans like this? Your coming was foretold by the ancients. Our stone, worshipped by millions, walks amongst us for the first time. You have given us technology from beyond the gods themselves, and yet here you sit drinking your terrible beer." Middleton shrugged. "The universe is a strange place. If you ever get bored, we can always use another engineer. Cheers." He re-entered his ship, now happily repaired. The station had tried to cancel the bill, but he wouldn't let them. The captain needed to learn to tell him what was on the ship. As he moved to his quarters, he was interrupted by a crewman. "Engineer, the lights are gone on deck 3 again. Please fix it properly this time." Definitely a library ship next time. Unexpected strike event. The intersystem trader Stone Cold was sitting in orbit. The captain had declared that a human engineer would be working on the systems, and was now at the required 2 light-minute minimum from an inhabited planet. As per the regs, he had left his crew behind. He would have preferred to stay on planet himself, but the rules forbid unsupervised human engineering. He had no idea what the humans were doing, even after the engineer had carefully explained it. That bothered him, just not enough to do anything about it, but it was a common complaint amongst the captains. Tell that to the shareholders. All they saw was the money they saved. Outside the ship, 2 men were watching things go very, very wrong. "Do we have a drill for this?" asked his apprentice. His sister's boy. Nice lad. A bit slow to make the tea. Half the ship was floating away, heading towards the local sun. The engineer gave a hollow laugh. "We have a drill for everything. This is an unexpected strike event, and the drill is write your will and discover a god. The ship is fucked." The meteor had arrived suddenly and fast. Since the universe hated engineers, it had struck just as his apprentice had disabled the scanner array and shields for repairs. It had probably been on this path for 1,000,000 years, never bothering anyone, unnoticed in the dark, until fate had put the ship in its way. The cargo and supply compartments had been shattered. The engine suddenly sent freewheeling into space. Shields, weapons, and life support were dead or dying. The ship doors had sealed off the damage, but you can't repair what isn't there. The engineer shook himself. This was merely the start. If he had wanted a safe job, he could have stayed home and kept his hands clean. Anyway, he had to save the boy. His sister would kill him if they died out here. "Adam, go and check the comms. Use the backup and start calling for help. I need to talk to the captain." Captain Maddie was a sentient silicon species. It didn't panic about being exposed to space, at least not as much as its organic crew. Privately, it thought they should stay on the ground. If space was going to kill you, why fly about in it? The engineer arrived. Time to see what the famed human skill could do about this mess. Well, Engineer Peterson, would you like to explain why half the ship is missing? What exactly did you do? The universe decided to sucker punch us. The array and shields were down for repairs, as you should know since you authorized it. We lost cargo, supplies, and engines. Also most of the atmosphere. I know that doesn't really matter to you, but me and the boy need it. He's calling for help now. The captain called comms. Apprentice Adam, have you had any success? Sorry, Captain, I can only activate the collision warning. Nothing else is working at the moment. I need help down here. The last statement had a certain tone that the captain recognized as the human emotion worried. His own species tended to feel emotions only on an annual basis. They had never really got the hang of the organic sheer range of feelings. Perhaps they made sense to a species that had been both predator and prey. His people had never been either. I believe your apprentice needs you. Keep me informed. 2 light minutes away, one of the orbital controllers noticed a collision alert. He cross-checked it with known ships in the system and identified it as the Stone Cold. A trader ship under repair by humans. That's what you get for allowing those annoying apes play with your equipment. He turned his satellites to watch the disaster unfold. The surviving part of the ship was now completely dark, nothing but the automatic beeping from the collision alert. What the controller found was the engine tumbling towards the sun, followed by streams of debris from the cargo and supplies compartments. Jumping to conclusions, the controller announced that the Stone Cold had been lost with all hands and was currently falling into the sun. On planet, the crew of the Stone Cold were told the news. Most of them were of the same species as the captain and reacted stoically. A brief moment of mourning and off to find a new ship. One of them was different. One of the crew had been a refugee, once rescued by a human ship. He remembered the hazard junkie. He remembered when the humans came for him, saved him. He remembered sitting in the dark, buried, forgotten and waiting to die. If someone was still out there, they would be feeling the same. He shivered with the memory. Then he went back to his room and began searching. Success. He made a call. Captain Middleton here. I'm told you were looking for me. The captain took down the details. Sounded like a dead loss to him. Ship broke. Ship fell into sun. Fuck all for him to do about it. Then he discovered that the controllers were already blaming the humans, warning that that's what happened when you hire a xeno-engineer. Screw that. We're going on a search, lads. Gear up. He didn't expect to find survivors, but he might find answers. The Stone Cold was spinning in space, unpowered and dark. It was now far from its original course, settling into a terminal orbit of the sun. Adam, cut the transmission. We might need the power. No one is coming. His apprentice was, all things considered, pretty calm, waiting for him to fix this. I need to check what we have. Stay here in case anyone calls. He was lying. He just needed a walk. There was nothing to fix. His spares were on the way towards the sun, and the ship was surviving on a couple of solar panels he had stolen from the biology lab. He found the captain in place on the bridge. Part of him was annoyed that the creature wasn't panicking. No emotions like the rest of them. They measured their life in half-lives. Not quite immortal, but close enough. Good crew, but by his estimation, boring as hell. He knew that the captain regarded humans as a sort of firework, bright, exciting, and soon gone. Captain, we are nearly out of power. I reckon we hit the sun early next week. Me and the boy won't last that long without atmosphere. I suggest you bail out before we get any closer. Engineer Peterson, I do not intend to spend my life orbiting this sun. You have any better ideas? Not at the moment. I'll let you know. Adam sounded excited when he tracked down the engineer. Boss, there's a human ship. It's rescue and recovery. They're looking for us. You need to listen. The broadcast was short and looping. Attention, Stone Cold. This is the RR Hazard Junkie. We are in system and searching. Please relay your position. Attention, Stone Cold. This is the... It should have been the best news ever. It should have been, but off course, tumbling in the dark. No one was going to find them quickly. Maybe when they got closer to the sun and began to melt. not helping. "How much power have we?" asked Adam. "Enough to call out if they were maybe 20 meters away. I sent the power to life support. I need to talk to the captain." He moved quickly to the bridge. "Captain, I have some questions. Our lives may depend on the answer. From what I understand, you and your people are born with a central radioactive core that powers you for life, is that right?" "Well, sort of. We can ingest more over time, extending our lifespan. I am currently capable of surviving several thousand rotations as I am. Don't worry, I will remember you." The engineer flinched. "I don't want to be remembered for crashing a ship. I want to know if you can express that energy in any useful way." The captain was finally surprised by humans. "I don't know how useful I can be. I can absorb and deflect most energies. We are built for that, at least." What followed was the most insane conversation the captain had ever been involved in. Despite every reservation, he finally agreed. The captain floated in space, observing the damage to his ship. Even if this worked, it was going to take a while to repair. "Adam, this is the oldest distress call used by humankind. A waste of time for anyone else. This is the last of our power. If it doesn't work, then I'll see you on the other side." "Yes, boss. It will work, though. It has to." The engineer began shooting at his captain. The hazard was quartering the grid, searching for anything. The debris matched a meteor strike on an unshielded ship. Well, that's why the ship was out here. Safety away from occupied space. Looked like a lot of bad luck. So much for blaming the engineer. It was the controller that designated repair space. Maybe that was why they wanted to blame the human. Human lawyers were nearly as feared as human engineering. "Captain Middleton, I have an anomaly. Show me." A strange pulse was emitting from the dark, close enough to be related to the wreck, far enough to be easily missed. Captain Middleton listened. It sounded familiar, like something he should know. He found himself tapping it out on the console. "Track that and take us in." The closer he got, the more familiar it sounded. What the fuck was it? It was his comms officer who finally realized. "Shit! I mean, sir, that's an SOS. In Morse code, for God's sake. It's human and it needs help. I heard it in a training film years ago." When the hazard arrived and spotted the ship, they watched as the most half-assed laser they had ever seen hit an object in space. Every time the laser struck, the object pulsed, magnified to create the signal that he had followed. The pulse was short, 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 long, 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 short, short, short. Pause and begin again. The hazard recovered the two humans quickly, at the last gasp of their atmosphere. The captain went down to meet his new guests. "Congratulations, engineer. I have no idea how you did that. How many were lost?" The engineer spoke quickly. "You need to move. My captain is floating about out there. Can you please go and get him?" Captain Middleton was confused. "You mean he abandoned ship? And left you?" The engineer looked outraged. "Captain, that's what we were shooting at. He saved us. Please bring him in." It took quite a while to get the full story. The quirk of the captain's biology, or geology, had been enough to turn a piss-poor laser blast into a system-wide pulse. The captain of the Stone Cold was recovered with, as he put it, sunburn. The ship was allowed to fall into the sun, damaged beyond recovery. He had been delighted to learn that the planet was at fault and he would get a new ship. So many emotions in the same month. He felt positively childish. They sat and watched until it was gone. "Adam, for the love of anything holy, find me a cup of tea." "Yes, boss." "Oh, Mom's calling. She wants to talk to you." Shit.
Dig deep.
Elisha powered down the drill array. Even in the hog he was driving, the heat shield could only take so much. Time for lunch. He kicked on the music, enjoying the sounds of the surface while waiting for everything to cool down. Silent for now, the great drills rattled the hog too much to listen to anything when at work. He was nearly 6 kilometers down. The exterior was over 200 degrees. The hog was 60 meters long, pulling the ore carts, and 10 meters in diameter on the face. It takes a while for the cooling systems to get a grip. He reckoned this shaft was about done. He was losing too many hours to the heat. Still, not his call. Then his comms lit up. Maybe this was the day. Elisha here. Before you start, I had to shut her down. Get the shields upgraded before you start giving out. Or take it up with the Union. Elisha, I don't know who is normally your supervisor, and I'll pass on your message, but this is security. I need you on the surface right now. Leave the blades and the ore behind and get up here as soon as possible. We need your help. Elisha tried to work it out. Dumping the blades was a last resort. The ore could wait, but the blades would fry before anyone could collect them. A very expensive last resort. The seismic forecast was a solid clear, so not the shaft. None of his mine alerts had gone off, so no accidents on site. That left just one other possibility. Ah, crap. One of the legacies of Earth was the long and dangerous history of mining. When we finally joined the greater galaxy, we didn't know how rare that was. Most light worlds didn't need to battle deep for resources, and when they did, it was shallow, safe work for good money. Once a species reached its asteroid belt, mining on planet was finished. Earth proved to be different. While many left to take their skills to space for a living, the many heavy elements and rare earths in the planet's mantle continued to be useful. Another legacy of Earth's past was a commitment to rescue and recovery that had, to the astonishment of many species, spread with them to include anyone in trouble. If a call came, the humans would arrive. Sometimes all they did was bury the dead, but even that was more than most. It took Elisha nearly 4 hours to make the surface. All the way back, his mind had chewed through the possibilities. He came back to the same thing. If you were looking for a deep miner that had worked in space, had a history in rescue and recovery, and was available, the possibilities were exactly one: him. When he kicked open the hatch, a group was standing around waiting for him. Some he recognized. Shift boss, security, chief mining engineer, and then the others, 2 Xenos and a couple of overdressed civilians. So, where am I going? Who's in trouble? If his conclusions surprised anyone, it didn't show. Elisha took that as confirmation. Mind you, short of arriving naked and painted blue, he wouldn't have expected to surprise a mining crew. Miners were all a bit on the strange side. One of the civilians stood forward. "We need you. It's been cleared all the..." Elisha looked at the guy. Never lifted a damn thing in his life. Probably the only time he had ever dug a hole was to bury a goldfish. The suit was a lie. This guy was military. "Nice to meet you too. Go fuck yourself, sir. I'm strictly a civilian these days. You lot made that clear. I do rescue, not classified mil-tech bullshit." He turned to his shift boss. "Dude, not cool. I thought this place was on the up and up." The shift boss looked uneasy. "Sorry, Elisha. They won't tell me anything except that it's a rescue. Please." "Since when are rescues classified? What, you scream for help really quietly or something?" "Bollocks." The other civilian looked around. "Can you all leave us for a moment? I will explain to Mr. Elisha." Everyone else trooped back to the office. "I will keep it short. The reason it's classified is because one of us did it. A human engineer blew up a moon over an inhabited and subterranean world. We need to go and start digging." "Holy fuck. What?" The suit nodded. "Exactly. She was attacked and unsupervised, but she did what needed to be done. Regardless, we need to help and frankly need to be seen helping. The Xenos will fill you in on the planet. My job is to get you and your gear into space. Never mind my engineer, I think he got married in that suit. He feels badly that we're cleaning up after one of his own." He was given a couple of hours to grab his stuff, make his calls. Anyone who knew him knew the drill. When the flare went up, that was it. It didn't take long. The Xenos were waiting for him at the spaceport. Their ship was, well, ordinary. He didn't want to be rude, but this looked like public transport. When the Xenos introduced themselves, it didn't help. "Thank you for aiding us. I am unfortunate one, and this is my colleague trapped above. We will describe our world to you, that you may understand." The face mask hid the creature's features, but he didn't detect any enthusiasm for his presence. "We are diplomats from the planet Windig." Elisha took a deep drink of the beer, kindly supplied by an apologetic engineer. Fuck, this was a mess. He was stuck on the Xeno ship. His gear took longer to load, but was leaving on an Earth ship. They should arrive at roughly the same time. He needed the Xenos information, so here he was. They were a barrel of laughs, this lot. Yes, their planet had been blown to shit. Yes, they had just survived a civil war. Yes, they hated space even more than he did. Still, cheer the fuck up. The gloomy lighting and silence were beginning to get to him, and he had weeks to go. Finally, he just studied the maps. It took a while to understand a map that concentrated on soil type, stone composition, heat levels, and magma events. For a miner, this was a dream that he was going to steal and use as soon as he got home. Once you got past the here be dragons for everything above ground, this was all he needed. Clearly what this planet needed was a highway, a new connection that could ignore existing historical highways and byways. One that punched ahead and let the first aid crews in behind him, doing all the rescue and repair. He showed his plan to Unfortunate One. It didn't go well. Once the shouting stopped, the Xeno explained that he was suggesting punching a hole through everything held sacred by his people. Churches, graveyards, and worse. I'm sure it does, I don't care. Announce that this is a holy fucking festival or something. This is my path. Otherwise lots of your people die. I'm not here to knock shit over. But your moon fell down, remember? Blame that, not me. The atmosphere got even more welcoming after that. The endless trip finally arrived at the planet. A rescue and recovery station had been constructed on planet, ferrying the injured to the waiting hospital ships. Recovery teams dug out the unfortunate dead and cleared the infrastructure. Small impacts were still making it through the satellite screen hastily put into orbit, but most of the danger had passed. Elisha walked into the barely controlled chaos that was R&R. He carried his plans with him. In the long hall over here, he had developed a strategy that would access the largest number of inhabitants in the shortest time. He watched the Xeno diplomats scurry away from the ship, presumably to complain. They hated his plans. Tough shit, they weren't his problem. Millions cut off from supplies and medical help was more important than some fucked up theology. He recognized the captain who had flown out his gear. Damned if he could remember his name, though. Captain, hope you had a more pleasant trip than I had. Those Xenos are officially assholes. Ah, yes. I forgot to mention that. I hoped the beer might help. It did. For the first week. Did my gear arrive safely? Also, forgive me, I didn't get your name. I see our briefing materials are as good as always. I'm Captain Middleton, out of the RR Hazard Junkie. Yes, everything is here. We were just waiting for you. Come on, I'll introduce you to the team. In a prefab building nearby, the coordination center was marked by hastily scrawled signs. Staffers from any race that could handle the atmosphere and gravity were moving quickly in and out. Elisha remembered that walk. The don't look like you're running pace, designed by someone to prevent panic. Humanity sometimes had too much time on its hands. Seeing humans running really triggered the Xenos for some reason. A short Xeno looked up at him. One of the feathery ones. A glib or gloob. Something like that. He'd check it out later. Miner Elisha, welcome. I am the coordinator. We have been waiting for you. I already have 3 complaints about you, one of which is from your own government. Elisha smiled. Let me guess. The church of whoever the fuck those Xeno diplomats are in, and a complaint from the Human-Xeno Relations Committee? Actually 2 different churches, but yes, you were expecting this. Anytime a human pisses off a Xeno diplomat, the Xeno Relations Committee issues a complaint, shows it to the offended party, and then files it in the shredder. Standard operating procedure, I'm afraid. The coordinator filed that disturbing information away. She had made several complaints in the past and received reassuring words from the HXTC. I hope you have brought us a suitable plan. We have reached our limit without better access. He nodded. You're not going to like it. Better get a very big box if you're keeping the complaints. Here. He cast his plans to the screen. The planet is seen by miners and mole people. This is where I need to go. Elisha's plan involved him slaving another drill to his hog and punching a dual tunnel in a twisting path around the major habitations. Secondly, drills would breach the cities, allowing access. The least amount of tunnel, in the least amount of time for maximum effect. The provisional Windig government has approved. Quite a few signed it and asked for asylum. Please begin. With over 2,000 miles of tunnel to drill, he began his work. He planned for 100K per day, expected 80 and allowed for 60. The RR hazard junkie would ferry him and his gear over the areas that didn't need him. His hog was waiting. The blades were set for clearance, not collection. The lasers would seal the wall and the cutting fields would obliterate the rock. Finally, behind the wheel again, Elisha pushed his machine. Chewing a path through limestone gave him speed, while the maps avoided anything too annoying. Behind him, the locals were making contact, and the R&R teams flowed in. Then the problems began. It started with a few potshots at the hazard, then an explosion at the R&R center. Nothing important, but Elisha smelled a change in the air. It wasn't unknown for people to start blaming the rescuers. Strangers, aliens, invaders. The locals needed someone to blame. He began making a few quiet changes to his hogs. Normally, the laser heads were shielded from the cutting fields, preventing dust or particle ignition. He took a couple of hours to swap out a few parts and reprogram the laser gimbals, just in case. The final push to hit the 1K, then off to the other side of the planet. The rescue teams were now backed by government militia. His hogs ran unannounced, and his maps were now classified. Still, the atmosphere had changed. The fanatics were back. Elisha was beginning to sympathize with the engineer that dropped a moon on them. The enemy was waiting as he brought the hogs to the surface. It was supposed to be a secret, and the hazard was supposed to be waiting. It wasn't, and, well, it wasn't. Missiles struck his hog. Elisha cursed and grabbed the comms. "Get me back up, I'm under fire on the surface. Where the fuck are you, hazard?" His comms just buzzed at him. Fuck. Time for some old-fashioned human fuck you. He punched in the program and pushed his machines down. They were quicker than they looked and stronger. His hog was rattling as more missiles struck. He guesstimated that his attackers were maximum 1K out. He hit the seismic sensors. They showed launch points from 3 spots. He assumed that these subterranean fuckers would follow him down. Fine. He had swapped out the bolts on the shielding panels with explosive ones. A quick command and they blew, falling away. Then he boosted the laser cutters, swinging the laser heads down to point straight ahead. A friendly engineer had added a few options, range-wise. Then he pulled the hogs down 10 meters and swung them around, pointing right back at the entrance. He turned off the cutting fields and waited. The hogs didn't have windows. It should be impossible to know which one was the lead and which was the slave. He was gambling that they didn't know which was which. When the fanatics began descending, he sent the slave in a panicked run towards them, swerving about and firing its lasers wildly. The attackers focused on it, sending blast after blast into it. At the last minute, he powered it into the side of the tunnel. Then he opened up. Lasers designed to melt rock had no problem with organics. The beams evaporated all of them, clearing the tunnel of anything that moved. Looked like he needed to buy someone a beer or 9. Finally, the comms started pinging. "Elisha, come in. Elisha, report." "Fuck, come in, Elisha. This is the hazard junkie. Come in, Elisha. Hostiles on the way." "Hazard junkie, Elisha here. Yeah, about those hostiles." He and Captain Middleton flew straight back to the rescue center once they had recovered the hogs. His slave drill was going to take a bit of work to repair. More beer required for the engineers. The captain desperately explained that someone had falsified the coordinates and sent him on a wild goose chase. Once he realized that he was beyond the range of the hogs, he had double-checked. The coordinator was waiting for them on the ground. All hell was breaking loose in the office, with people trying to track down the infiltrator. "Welcome back, Minor Elisha. I'm glad for your safe return. We failed you, I'm afraid." "No worries. I had my hog. I'm all good." "A human ship is approaching. They wish to say that they are looking forward to seeing you again." Crap. He knew exactly who that was. "Did they give you a name?" The coordinator nodded. "It is the RR Armstrong. They are known to you?" "Well, it isn't the RR Armstrong, it's the ED Armstrong. It's a human Miltech ship. A heavy. I used to serve on it." The coordinator was confused. "I'm sorry. This is a human warship? I have never heard of human warships. I didn't think you had any." "Yes, I know. Everyone is allowed to think that. We do, and one of them is on the way here. It's mostly a marine ship, or used to be. That's how I ended up on it anyway. Looks like Earth is putting some boots on the ground." The first shuttle down had the newly appointed human ambassador to Windig. Elisha recognized the man, not the suit. A retired admiral. For today, anyway. Greetings, Coordinator. I've been authorized to support your efforts. The security of your people and mine has become a concern. We will be enforcing the newly established Windig Security Agreement, protecting the civilian population, apprehending war criminals, that sort of thing. As he spoke, hundreds of troops were landing behind him. Full-body armored marine humans, not a sight many Xenos got to see. Well, not more than once. I'm sorry, Ambassador, I was unaware of such an agreement. Yes, well, we haven't told them about it yet. Consider yourself ahead of the news. The final cleanup was regarded as a perfect demonstration of human compassion. No one ever mentioned any attacks on the rescuers. The new highways eventually became a blessed event, and gratitude from the rescued pushed the society a little closer to the greater galaxy. The provisional government even rewrote a few lists of the dead to include the missing assholes that had attacked him. Elisha was enjoying a well-earned beer on the Hazard when he was approached by a woman in a dirty gray engineering uniform. Her tag was scuffed, but he read it as Revel. Hi. Heard you were down below, clearing up the mess. How did it go? Slightly better than you'd expect from that bunch of angry lunatics. We got there. The crews are busy putting the place back together. Saw some fucked up shit, though. If you never want to sleep again, go have a look at their cathedral. You in the rescue crew? The woman looked at him for a long minute. No, I'm just passing through, visiting family. Nothing as exciting as your job. Want another beer? I'm buying.
Banging rocks together.
The three aliens, unfortunate allies in the failing attempt to control humans, were sitting in the shade. The first to speak was the former captain for the advancement of the Tist nation. Former because the humans had handed him his tail, with salt. I took one of them prisoner. His audience looked at him in disbelief. Really? It was trapped after it blew up our headquarters. I dug it out. He farted as the memory took him back. It seemed nice. Didn't try to eat me or anything. 20 minutes later, it had killed 2 guards and disappeared into the forest. It stole my knife to do it and cost me my commission. Humans. The next to speak was Petal by Day, from one of the few vegetable races left in the galaxy. They took us by surprise. We didn't know they came out at night. Stupid, I know now. Fuckers never sleep. It drank deeply from the sugar water that the humans called soda, and continued, Our platoon never heard a thing. Apparently they had broken into our comms on day 1. They just kept listening. Until they wanted us out of the way. You know what really sucks? Not losing because wrong time, wrong place, anyone can lose. But when they captured us, it turns out we were on a list. A fucking list of species to be protected. All I heard was TBP every time they moved us. They refused to shoot at us apparently because of our low numbers. How am I supposed to fight that? She finished her Coke, shaking her leaves in frustration. I hear there are humans that only eat vegetables, so I'm still keeping my eyes open. Don't want one of those sickos looking for me. The third member of this impromptu picnic laughed. It was taller, stronger, and closer to human shape than the others. It stood up and turned to the plant. Watch this. It began pounding on its chest, a rhythmic drumming rousing the area. A human paused to look, shrugged and moved on. Another seemed to nod its head to the beat. The alien sat down again, picking up its drink. My name is Lital the Sounder. I was the officer of my people. My call used to raise an army, frighten our friends and terrify our enemies. Now, one of the humans asked me to play in the camp rock band. I said yes. Turns out their music is pretty damn good. The 3 prisoners watched as the camp moved around them. The humans kept a clear distance from the unfortunate captives, as apparently they felt uncomfortable holding prisoners. Each of them had received the same bewildering list of rules of war that the humans used. Since it was mostly a list of things they promised not to do, it was a little disturbing. What if they changed their minds? Had they done them before and decided against it? Then a human approached them. He was wearing stars. They knew now that that meant a lot. Stupidly, none of the Allied galactic forces had worked out that the humans had a machine for everything. Food, washing, and war. Apparently they use stars to tell you how long to keep food, what temperature to wash your clothes, and who was in charge of killing you. This human had 3, so he was either important or hand wash only. Welcome to Camp Doolittle. I'm afraid we haven't met before. I'm the commander around here. The 3 aliens silently stood up. Not hand wash, then. The human continued. I need you to meet some of the new guests. They don't seem to understand what a prisoner of war is, and I don't want to have to shoot them. Petal by Day was confused. They are from the Allies, yes? Then it is your duty to kill them. Am I not correct? The commander, a rather tired man in his mid-50s, was running out of patience with aliens. He had written the pamphlet out in 15 fucking languages. It would be nice if someone read the damn thing. I'm sure it was explained. If you are captured or surrender to human forces, you have rights as well as responsibilities. Prisoners cannot carry weapons, at least not for very long. In return, you are entitled to protection from us until the conflict ends. It's in the booklet you were given when you arrived. I need you to explain that calling them necessary doesn't mean my men won't shoot you. Now intrigued, the 3 aliens followed the commander back to the main barracks. Inside, a tense squad of humans was pointing weapons at 4 Retin troopers. From the smell, things were getting a little unpleasant and about to get worse. The commander turned to Petal by Day. You fought with these people. Explain that they are safe if they disarm. Otherwise, this is going to end abruptly. Before she had a chance to speak, Latal the Sounder started laughing. The commander was unamused. What? You want them dead? Because that's what happens next. Latal tried to find a way to explain this. Commander, those aren't weapons. They are anatomy. Is that the word? The Retin have a very direct method of mating, and these troopers are naked. Do you understand me? The commander turned slightly pale, then slightly red. Good God. Give them back their uniforms and warn them that they are never to take them off around humans. For everyone's sake. Once the situation had resolved itself, the commander went back to his office to begin writing yet another briefing paper on the enemy alliance. The 3 prisoners made their way back to the shade. Petal by Day was the first to break the silence. A strange thing to know. I do wonder about you. As they sat themselves down again, preparing for the endless boredom of camp life, a human struggled towards them. He reached the bench and dumped 2 crates of soda down. A thanks from the commander. He said you liked the stuff. The soldier was young and obviously curious about the aliens. The Teist captain took pity on the shiny new soldier. Thanks for the Coke. Perhaps you would like to join us? My name is Capel. I used to be a captain once upon a time. He nodded around the bench. That's Petal by Day and that's Latal the Sounder. They all helped themselves to the soda as he spoke. The young human grabbed a Coke and sat down. A bored guard noted the odd meeting, scribbling down the ID numbers of the participants for his sarge. You never know. Back at the bench, the young private stuttered out his name and quickly spoke what was on his mind. I'm not really supposed to talk to you, but well, I've never met any aliens properly. They just shot at me. If it's not too much to ask, why exactly are we fighting? I mean, I know the official stuff, but I mean, it makes no sense. The 3 prisoners glanced at each other. This stuff wasn't discussed. Ever. They called it mission security, or confidential war intelligence, or whatever phrase would hide the truth. Only a human would be dumb enough to ask, which was why they found themselves fighting half the galaxy. Petal by Day was the first to respond. Fuck it. Speaking for myself anyway, our government owed the Alliance banks a lot of money. A couple of bad seasons, and our population was dropping. Then the banks offered to help. Part of the deal in very small print committed us to a full response package. No one asked what it meant, not till we were mobilized. They didn't give me a reason, just orders. I hadn't a clue who humans were, just that you pissed off somebody. She shrugged, a universal expression of frustration, understood by anyone who had served as a soldier. Latal the Sounder finished his soda. It worked on his species like strong beer. Not that he intended telling the humans that, and he decided to join in. Well, I don't know about the banks, But the Alliance military suddenly started offering us huge money to join up. We didn't know why. Didn't really care. Most males of my people are soldiers anyway, so it felt like a good deal. Until they dropped us on a human colony. Turns out you don't fight like us. Our intelligence was terrible and we didn't know how to respond to your tactics. I still don't know what the fuck you were doing. We ran out of supplies, started losing patrols. Our tech stopped working and your soldiers wouldn't stand and fight. It was like trying to fight angry ghosts. We surrendered when headquarters suddenly disappeared, went off-world and left us all on our own. Assholes. The human had stayed silent up till now, but he felt he needed to add something. It sounds like there was a lot of money looking for this war. I know there was fuck all for us. We had to turn the entire economy on its head. Took ages before we could gear up. Again, the aliens looked at each other, then back at the human. How to explain this? Capel asked the human a question. We noticed. Do your people always do that? I mean, turn all your production to supplies? All your people to soldiers? The human laughed. God, no. Just the big ones. You know, planet wars and stuff. This is the biggest mobilization in a couple of 100 years. Since before we met you guys in space, really. Petal by Day swore. They didn't know. The fucking Alliance didn't know. Idiots. Never even checked. Capel frowned at Petal by Day, who was cutting close to treason. So a big deal then. My people were different. We own a lot of the banks. Our investors were getting upset at the pressure coming from the human worlds. Too much cheap money around. No secret. Our media was full of it. Perhaps they knew something had to give. The human just looked confused. Well, we didn't see it coming. But war we understand. We've been at it since people started to bang rocks together to make a better edge. We just didn't want to bring it with us into space. Latal began laughing again, and we thought that we were a warrior people. He kept laughing, but then the laughter died and he nodded. We couldn't understand how you were still fighting, or why you were still fighting. He opened another can of Coke, smiling. I'd love to tell them. Tell my command that it's because you never thought it was something you just stopped. That it's your normal. That we, as you say, poked a bear. What is a bear? By the way, I always wanted to ask a human that, ever since you put it on posters. The human private grinned. A predator on Earth. Very cool, very big and very dangerous. They weigh like 3 people and have razor blades for claws. They sleep the cold season away. Wake up hungry. They're protected. I mean, you're not allowed to kill them. Don't wake them early, or at all. Petal by Day recognized the language. Wait! You said protected. Humans said that about me. They refused to fight us. Are we too dangerous? Her petals were beginning to wave with pride. The human hesitated. Well, I don't know about your people, but in general on Earth it means we killed too many of something. That we need to be careful or there won't be any left for the future. Her petals collapsed, rendered speechless. The guard was getting a little concerned. He buzzed the private before the kid got into real trouble. Noobs needed a break sometimes. Private, get your arse in gear. Those are not your fucking mates. Move out. The private jumped from the bench, looking like someone hit him with a taser. Sorry, I've got to get moving. Thanks for the talk. I need to get to work. He practically ran back to the commander's office. The prisoners grinned, all remembering their own early days in the military. The mistakes that, depending on the species, meant cleaning up the toilets, hatcheries, blood rooms, sometimes with your teeth, sometimes with your tail end. Always nice to see it happening to someone else, especially the enemy. Capel was the first to comment, that kid is going to be scrubbing something for a week. Still, probably more information than I ever heard in a briefing. Petal by Day nodded. If we had known then, what we know now. Story of every fucking war. I'm quite glad to be sitting here for now. Cheers. She finished her Coke. Latal finished everyone's thoughts. The humans don't want this war. They never did. We wanted it. Hopefully it will end soon enough, and I'm so selling human soda once I get out of the army. But can you imagine if they wanted a war? Imagine if they forgot they had rules, or decided that they didn't apply to us. The prisoners contemplated an uncertain future. The The human private, looking chastised and worried, entered the commander office. Several of the staff raised amused eyes at the unlucky noob. No doubt some suitable task would be found for him. His demeanor changed as he closed the door. He stood straighter. Years fell onto his face. "Well, Commander, you haven't lost your touch. Your timing was perfect, the scenario ideal. I'll be recommending another promotion, I'm afraid." The commander, sitting behind his desk, surrounded by papers, groaned, "Not again. Can't you just leave me in peace? Anyway, did you decide?" Despite the uniform, it was no private that sat down across from him. "Yes, yours was the final camp I needed to see. We will agree to the ceasefire and the prisoner exchange. This war is over. None of them want to fight us again. The Alliance wasted their money on this one. It's over for now." He smiled, a smile that had worried people before. "And now we're ready for the next one. So they did us a favor there. Always handy having an enemy at the gates, if you're in the army."